Hello, greetings, and Happy New Year. My name is Persis Karim. I'm the director for the Center for Iranian Diaspora Studies at San Francisco State. I'm also a poet, and I'm delighted to be a part of this effort on the part of the Orlando Museum of Art in its exhibit, A Boundless Drop to a Boundless Ocean, celebrating the art and culture of Iranian and Arab American artists. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how to produce poetry with your family in the context of Nowruz. So as you can see right here on the table, I have my hafsin, which by now you might know is the altar to the arrival of spring, a very long and ancient tradition that Iranians and others who celebrate Nowruz prepare for. The items on this table are symbolic of this time of the year when we celebrate the arrival of spring, what we call a new day. And I'm going to be drawing a little bit on them for inspiration, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about, in this very short video, how you and your family could come together and to write some poems. So today, this workshop is sort of informed by these items. Writing about what you know, writing about what excites you and what interests you and what inspires you, observing and recording with your senses, your ears, your eyes, your taste, your smell, your heart. Also playing with image and language. Notice the sounds of things, how it makes you feel in your body, in your heart, and experimenting. Also, because this is an exhibit that is really celebrating the work of immigrants and diaspora communities, I invite you to think a little bit about the ways in which people speak and express themselves. Do they use their hands? Do they use a mix of languages? Do they have accents? And then I want to invite you to write something, to produce a poem based on some of these ideas. And I will prompt you a little bit by looking a little bit at this hafsin and also thinking a little bit about what spring means. I'm going to start by reading a couple poems. One I wrote several years ago, and one I wrote just for this occasion. The first one is called Prayer for Nowruz. As if from a dream we awaken to green, the silvery moon tells us it's time to slip on our best blossom, to open ourselves to buds of light that stretch our sense of the season, where the promise of a new day, washed clean of the past, of the heavy dread of dark and cold that gives way to whispering leaves, makes the gentle acquaintance of a season of rebirth, where the certainty of small things, blades of grass, hopeful seeds break through, the eruption into color, pink and white and every hue, the adornment we have been waiting for. Give us this day, this newness born of elongated rays from the shifting axis of possibility. That's Prayer for Nowruz. This is called Nowruz in Quarantine, which I wrote last year. It's kind of a rough draft, so it probably could use some polishing, but I want you to know that sometimes things are the most genuine and sincere when we've actually just produced them. This is called Nowruz in Quarantine. From the window, I watch plum blossoms flutter to the ground. When I walk to the park, pink petals stick to my shoes and the windshields of cars parked on the street for over a month. Never were the birds louder or more bold. One came to the window yesterday and asked me for breadcrumbs. I handed him the heel of my sourdough bread. Today I brush my hand over the sabze on my hafsin. Those 7 things are more precious now this year. I am thinking of sumac and sunlight and my grandparents who normally would visit and come to the picnic on the day we go to the hills with my cousins. Grandma liked to throw the sprouts down the stream and announce when they're turned upside down, shouting, Nowruz Piruz, at the very moment when we've lost sight of the green. Those two poems are inspired by some of these objects here on the table, and I want you to think a little bit about what they are. We have garlic for health, vinegar to represent bitterness and the passage of time, samanu to represent nutrition and health, sumac, the spice that we eat in our food but also represents the color of deep red sunlight, senjed, the seed of the lotus tree, which represents love, sib, which represents beauty and life, and of course sombol, which represents hyacinth, the arrival of spring, erupting, and then of course the mirror to reflect on the past year, and candles for each child in the family. You can use these objects to inspire your poems. For example, you might want to think a little bit about the colors of things, what they represent, or the textures of things, brushing my hand across the sabze. Or perhaps you might want to think a little bit about garlic and how it's in all the dishes that your mother makes. Those are ways in which to engage something like the Nowruz rituals. But there's also what's happening outside. Sunlight, the longer days, the arrival of plum blossoms or cherry blossoms, birds singing, and rebirth of young things like baby animals and birds. So when you do a poem, one of the things you most want to do is think a little bit about an image or several images that are important to you. Land on those images. Write a sentence. So you could start with plum blossoms. Start with plum blossoms by saying, white light erupts on the tree next door, and then go from there. Remember, poetry is an essence. It's distilled down. It's not sentences. It's actually images moving across the page and giving you the energy to understand the significance of either those images or the experience of that you associate with those images. Finally, I want to encourage you to revise your poem. So once you get it on the page and write something, the next thing to do is to think about, do I have too many words? Is there too many thes and ands? Can I distill it down to a set of short little lines that move the poem along and create an experience? Remember to think about what sounds you hear, birds singing, your grandmother asking you to come to the table, the kisses of your relatives. Even if you haven't had those experiences lately during COVID-19, which you probably haven't, you can remember and imagine. Ask your parents to tell you a little bit about their memories of celebrating Nowruz, either in Iran or here in the United States. Think a little bit about the artwork that's associated with this exhibit. Does it inspire you? Perhaps you'll draw a poem from one of those images. And I hope that you will send your poem to the Orlando Museum of Art so that they could also share it with others. Do this as a family. You will enjoy it, and read it to each other. Thank you. I hope this was helpful.